Welcome, brave souls, to Dreadful Diaries, where the shadows whisper secrets and the night holds untold horrors. If you crave the thrill of the unknown, make sure to subscribe and join our community of fellow horror enthusiasts. Now, dim the lights, grab a blanket, and let's dive into our first tale of terror. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the dense forest as a group of 4 friends, Maya, Jake, Sarah, and Tom, set out for a weekend hiking trip in the remote wilderness of the Cascade Mountains. They had heard whispers of a hidden trail that led to an ancient site, rumored to be steeped in mystery and folklore. Eager for adventure, they packed their gear and set off, unaware of the dark history that awaited them. As they hiked deeper into the woods, the air grew thick with the scent of pine and damp earth. The trail twisted and turned, leading them through towering trees and over rocky outcrops. After hours of trekking, they stumbled upon a clearing that felt oddly out of place. In the center lay a circular patch of earth, devoid of vegetation, surrounded by a ring of ancient stones covered in strange symbols. "What do you think this is?" Jake asked, stepping closer to the stones. The symbols were intricate, swirling patterns that seemed to pulse with an energy of their own. "Looks like some kind of ritual site," Maya replied, her curiosity piqued. "We should take a closer look." As they examined the stones, Sarah noticed a faint glow emanating from the ground. "Guys, look at this," she exclaimed, pointing to a symbol that seemed to shimmer in the fading light. The others gathered around, captivated by the sight. "Maybe we should take a picture," Tom suggested, pulling out his phone. As he snapped a photo, a sudden chill swept through the clearing, causing the hairs on the back of their necks to stand on end. "Did you feel that?" Maya asked, glancing around nervously. The atmosphere had shifted, and an unsettling silence enveloped them. "Let's not linger too long," Jake said, feeling an inexplicable urge to leave. But before they could turn back, Sarah knelt down and traced her fingers over the glowing symbol. "What if we—" Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath them, and a low rumble echoed through the clearing. The symbols flared to life, casting an eerie light that illuminated the trees around them. The friends exchanged terrified glances as the air grew heavy with an oppressive energy. "Sarah, stop!" Tom shouted, but it was too late. The moment her fingers left the symbol, a dark shadow emerged from the ground, swirling and coalescing into a grotesque figure. It had no discernible features, just a mass of darkness that seemed to absorb the light around it. Panic set in as the friends stumbled back, their hearts racing. "What did we do?" Maya cried, her voice trembling. The figure let out a low, guttural sound that reverberated through the clearing, sending a wave of dread coursing through them. It reached out with shadowy tendrils, grasping at the air as if searching for something, or someone. "Run!" Jake yelled, and they turned to flee, racing back toward the trail. The forest felt alive, branches clawing at them as they dashed through the underbrush. The sound of the creature's pursuit echoed behind them, a haunting reminder of the malevolence they had awakened. As they ran, the path twisted and turned, disorienting them. They could hear the creature's whispers, a cacophony of voices that seemed to call out their names, taunting them. "You disturbed us, now you must pay." Desperation fueled their flight, but the forest seemed to conspire against them, leading them in circles. Just when they thought they had found their way, they stumbled back into the clearing, the ritual site looming ominously before them. "Why are we back here?" Sarah gasped, her eyes wide with fear. The creature loomed in the center, its form shifting and writhing as if it were feeding off their terror. "We have to finish what we started," Maya said, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. "We need to reverse the ritual." With no time to waste, they gathered their courage and approached the symbols once more. They remembered the stories of the ancient site, how it was a place of balance, a connection between worlds. They needed to restore that balance. "Help me!" Maya shouted, kneeling before the symbols. The others joined her, placing their hands on the ground, focusing their energy on the symbols. They began to chant the words they had heard in the whispers, a language that felt both foreign and familiar. As they spoke, the creature writhed in agony, its form flickering as if it were being pulled back into the earth. The ground shook violently, and the air crackled with energy. The friends pressed on, their voices rising in unison, determined to banish the darkness they had unwittingly unleashed. With one final, powerful chant, the symbols blazed with light, and the creature let out a deafening roar. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the rugged terrain of the Appalachian Trail. Emily had set out early that morning, eager to escape the chaos of her life and immerse herself in nature. But as the day wore on, she lost track of time and the trail markers. Now, with darkness creeping in, she realized she was hopelessly lost. Panic began to set in as she stumbled through the underbrush, her heart racing. The forest, once a sanctuary, now felt like a labyrinth of shadows. The chirping of crickets and rustling of leaves seemed to mock her as she called out for help, her voice swallowed by the vastness of the woods. Just as despair threatened to overwhelm her, she spotted a figure standing a few yards away, partially obscured by the trees. The figure was tall and slender, dressed in a weathered flannel shirt and jeans, with a wide-brimmed hat that obscured their face. Emily hesitated, unsure if she should approach. "Are you lost?" the figure called out, their voice calm and soothing. "Yes. I can't find my way back to the trail," Emily replied, relief flooding her voice. "Can you help me?" The figure stepped closer, revealing a pair of piercing blue eyes that seemed to glow in the dim light. "I can guide you back. Follow me." Without thinking, Emily nodded and fell in step behind the mysterious stranger. As they walked, the figure moved with an effortless grace, navigating the dense underbrush as if they were intimately familiar with the forest. Emily struggled to keep up, her mind racing with questions. "What's your name?" she asked, trying to break the silence. "Call me Sam," the figure replied, glancing back at her with a faint smile. "I've been wandering these woods for a long time." "Wandering?" Emily echoed, a chill running down her spine. "What do you mean?" Sam paused, their expression shifting to one of melancholy. "I used to hike these trails with my friends. We would camp under the stars and share stories by the fire. But one night, everything changed." Emily felt a knot tighten in her stomach. "What happened?" Sam's gaze drifted into the distance, as if lost in memories. "We were caught in a storm. We tried to find shelter, but we got separated. I never saw them again." The sadness in their voice was palpable, and Emily felt a pang of sympathy. "I'm so sorry," she said softly. "That must have been terrible." "It was," Sam replied, their voice barely above a whisper. "But I couldn't leave. I've been searching for them ever since." As they continued walking, Emily noticed the forest around them seemed to shift. The trees loomed taller, their branches twisting like gnarled fingers. The air grew colder, and an unsettling silence enveloped them. She glanced at Sam, who appeared unfazed, their expression distant and contemplative. "Are you sure we're going the right way?" Emily asked, unease creeping into her voice. "Trust me," Sam replied, their tone firm yet gentle. "I know these woods better than anyone." Minutes turned into what felt like hours, and Emily's anxiety mounted. I don't think I can keep going like this. I need to get back to my car. Sam stopped abruptly, turning to face her. You don't understand. You're not just lost in the woods. You're lost in time. What do you mean? Emily asked, her heart racing. The forest holds memories, echoes of those who have wandered here. I can feel their presence, and they can feel yours. You're not the first to seek refuge here, and you won't be the last. Emily's breath caught in her throat. What are you saying? I'm saying that I can help you find your way back, but you must be willing to confront the truth of this place, Sam said, their voice steady. You must face the darkness that lingers. Before she could respond, the ground beneath them trembled, and the air crackled with energy. Shadows danced around them, and Emily felt a pull, as if the forest itself was alive and beckoning her to stay. Sam, I don't want to be here anymore, she cried, panic rising in her chest. Then you must let go of the fear, Sam urged, stepping closer. You have to trust me. With a deep breath, Emily nodded, steeling herself for whatever lay ahead. Okay. I trust you. As they continued walking, the shadows began to shift, revealing glimpses of the past, figures laughing around a campfire, friends sharing stories, and then, suddenly, the storm. Emily watched in horror as the scene unfolded before her eyes, the laughter turning to screams as the friends were swept away by the raging winds. No, she shouted, trying. The sun hung high in the sky as a group of 6 friends, Mark, Lisa, Jake, Sarah, Tom, and Emily, set out for a weekend hiking trip in the remote wilderness of the Blackwood Forest. They had planned this trip for months, eager to escape the hustle and bustle of city life and reconnect with nature. The forest was known for its breathtaking views and serene trails, but there were also whispers of something lurking in the shadows. On the first day, they hiked for hours, laughing and sharing stories as they made their way deeper into the woods. As evening approached, they set up camp near a clear, bubbling stream, the sound of water soothing their tired bodies. They gathered around the campfire, roasting marshmallows and recounting ghost stories, the flickering flames casting eerie shadows on the trees. Did you guys hear about the hiker who went missing last year? Jake asked, his voice low and conspiratorial. They say something in these woods took him. Come on, Jake, don't start with that, Lisa said, rolling her eyes. It's just a story to scare people. But as the night wore on, an unsettling feeling settled over the group. The forest was too quiet, the usual sounds of wildlife absent. They brushed it off as their imagination, but the tension lingered. The next morning, they awoke to find Tom missing. His sleeping bag was empty, and his gear was untouched. Panic set in as they called out for him, but the only response was the rustling of leaves in the wind. Maybe he went for a walk, Mark suggested, trying to remain calm. He'll be back soon. But as the hours passed and Tom didn't return, worry turned to fear. They decided to split up and search for him, each group taking a different trail. Mark and Lisa headed north, while Jake, Sarah, and Emily went south. As they searched, the forest felt increasingly oppressive. Shadows seemed to stretch and twist, and every rustle in the underbrush sent their hearts racing. After what felt like an eternity, Mark and Lisa stumbled upon Tom's backpack, abandoned and half buried in the leaves. Tom! Mark shouted, his voice echoing through the trees. Where are you? But there was no answer. Meanwhile, Jake, Sarah, and Emily had found a small clearing where they decided to rest. As they sat on a fallen log, they heard a faint sound, a low growl that sent chills down their spines. Did you hear that? Sarah whispered, her eyes wide with fear. Probably just a bear, Jake said, trying to sound brave. We should keep moving. They continued their search, but the atmosphere grew heavier with each passing moment. The sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows that danced ominously around them. Just as they were about to turn back, they heard a blood-curdling scream echo through the trees. Was that Tom? Emily gasped, her face pale. Let's go. Jake shouted, and they sprinted toward the sound, adrenaline pumping through their veins. They reached a small ravine and found Tom's lifeless body sprawled on the ground, his eyes wide with terror. The sight was horrific, and they struggled to comprehend what had happened. There were no signs of a struggle, no blood, just an overwhelming sense of dread. We need to get out of here, Sarah said, her voice trembling. Now. As they turned to leave, they heard the growl again, closer this time. Panic surged through them, and they ran back toward the campsite, but the forest seemed to shift around them, disorienting them further. Where's Mark and Lisa? Jake shouted, realizing they had lost track of their friends. Keep moving. Emily urged, her heart racing. They stumbled through the underbrush, desperately trying to find their way back, but the forest felt like a maze, twisting and turning in ways they couldn't comprehend. Suddenly, they heard a rustling behind them. They turned to see a dark shape moving through the trees, just out of sight. It was large, and its movements were unnaturally swift. Run! Jake yelled, and they took off, fear propelling them forward. They could hear the creature pursuing them, its growls echoing through the trees, growing closer with every step. They burst into the clearing where they had set up camp, but it was empty. Mark and Lisa were nowhere to be found. The fire pit was cold, and their belongings lay scattered, as if they had been abandoned in a hurry. Where are they? Emily cried, panic rising in her chest. We can't stay here. Sarah shouted, glancing back into the trees. We need to find a way out. As they turned to leave, the creature emerged from the shadows, a massive, hulking figure with matted fur. The sun rose over the rugged peaks of the Sierra Nevada, casting a golden hue across the landscape as a group of 5 friends, Alex, Mia, Jordan, Sarah, and Ben, set out for a weekend hiking trip. They were excited to escape the grind of their daily lives and immerse themselves in the beauty of nature. The plan was simple: hike to the summit of Mount Eldridge, camp for the night, and return the next day. As they trekked along the winding trail, laughter and camaraderie filled the air. They shared stories, took pictures, and marveled at the breathtaking views. After several hours of hiking, they reached a picturesque clearing, perfect for setting up camp. They pitched their tents, gathered firewood, and settled in for a night under the stars. As darkness fell, they gathered around the campfire, roasting marshmallows and sharing ghost stories. Mia, always the skeptic, rolled her eyes at the tales of haunted trails and lost hikers. Come on, guys. It's just a bunch of stories to scare people, she said, laughing. But as the fire crackled and the wind whispered through the trees, an unsettling feeling crept over the group. They brushed it off, attributing it to the eerie atmosphere of the forest. The next morning, they awoke to the sound of birds chirping and the sun streaming through the trees. After a quick breakfast, they packed up their gear and prepared to head back down the mountain. However, as they began their descent, they noticed something strange. The trail seemed different. The familiar landmarks were gone, replaced by unfamiliar terrain. Did we take a wrong turn? Ben asked, glancing around in confusion. I don't think so, Alex replied, frowning. We should have reached the fork in the trail by now. As they continued down the path, the feeling of unease grew. The forest felt denser, the shadows longer. They pressed on, but the trail only seemed to lead them deeper into the woods. Hours passed, and the sun began to dip low in the sky. "Maybe we should set up camp again," Sarah suggested, her voice tinged with worry. "We can figure this out in the morning." Reluctantly, the group agreed. They found a small clearing and set up their tents once more. As night fell, they gathered around the fire, the flickering flames casting eerie shadows on their faces. "Let's not tell any scary stories this time," Mia said, her voice shaky. "I don't think I can handle it." But as they sat in silence, the atmosphere grew heavy with tension. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the trees, followed by a chilling whisper that seemed to come from nowhere. The friends exchanged nervous glances, their hearts racing. "What was that?" Jordan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know, but I don't like it," Ben replied, glancing around the darkening forest. They decided to turn in for the night, hoping that a good night's sleep would clear their heads. But when they awoke the next morning, they found themselves in the same clearing, the same tents, and the same campfire still smoldering. "What the hell?" Alex exclaimed, sitting up in disbelief. "Didn't we just do this?" Panic set in as they realized they were trapped in a time loop, reliving the same day over and over. They tried to retrace their steps, but no matter what they did, they always ended up back in the clearing. As the days turned into a blur of repetition, the group began to unravel. Each iteration of the day grew darker, the whispers in the woods becoming more sinister. They started to see shadowy figures lurking just beyond the trees, watching them with malevolent intent. "We have to find a way out of here," Mia shouted one night, her voice filled with desperation. "We can't keep doing this." "Maybe we need to confront whatever is causing this," Sarah suggested, her eyes wide with fear. "We need to find the source of the loop." With renewed determination, the group set out to explore the forest, searching for any clues that might help them escape. They ventured deeper into the woods, following the whispers that seemed to guide them. But the deeper they went, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. On the 5th day of the loop, they stumbled upon an ancient stone altar, covered in strange symbols and surrounded by twisted trees. The air was thick with an unnatural energy, and the whispers grew louder, echoing in their minds. "This must be it," Alex said, his voice trembling. "This is what's keeping us trapped." As they approached the altar, the shadows coalesced into a dark figure, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. "You dare disturb the cycle," it hissed, its voice a chilling whisper that sent shivers down their spines. "We want to break." The sun hung high in the sky as a group of 4 friends, Rachel, Mark, Jenna, and Tom, set out for a weekend hiking trip in the remote wilderness of the Pine Ridge Mountains. They were excited to explore the lesser-known trails, eager for adventure and the thrill of the great outdoors. The air was crisp, and the scent of pine filled their lungs as they set off down the winding path. As they hiked deeper into the forest, the trail began to narrow, and the trees grew denser. The laughter and chatter that had filled the air slowly faded as they became more focused on their surroundings. It was then that they stumbled upon something unsettling, a scattering of animal bones littering the ground. "Whoa, what happened here?" Mark said, kneeling to examine a small skull, its eye sockets empty and hollow. "Looks like some kind of predator's kill site," Rachel replied, her brow furrowed in concern. "But this is a lot of bones for just one animal." Jenna shivered, glancing around the trees. "Maybe we should turn back. This is kind of creepy." "Come on, it's just nature," Tom said, trying to lighten the mood. "Let's keep going." We can't let a few bones scare us off. Reluctantly, the group pressed on, but the atmosphere had shifted. The cheerful sounds of the forest seemed muted, replaced by an eerie silence that hung in the air. As they continued down the trail, they found more bones, larger ones this time, some still stained with remnants of flesh. "Okay, this is getting weird," Rachel said, her voice trembling. "We should really think about turning back." But Tom, ever the adventurer, urged them to keep going. "We're almost at the summit. Let's just see what's up ahead." As they hiked on, the trail twisted and turned, leading them deeper into the woods. The bones became more frequent, and the sense of dread grew heavier. They began to hear strange sounds, rustling in the underbrush, low growls that seemed to echo from the shadows. "Did you hear that?" Jenna whispered, her eyes wide with fear. "Probably just a deer," Mark said, though he didn't sound convinced. Finally, they reached a clearing, and what they found sent chills down their spines. In the center stood a massive tree, its gnarled roots twisted like fingers reaching out of the ground. Surrounding the tree was a circle of stones, each one marked with strange symbols. And scattered around the base of the tree were bones, hundreds of them, a macabre testament to the horrors that had taken place in this clearing. "This is a graveyard," Rachel said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But why are there so many bones?" Before anyone could respond, a low growl emanated from the shadows, and the friends turned to see a pair of glowing eyes watching them from the edge of the clearing. The creature stepped into the light, revealing itself to be a massive wolf-like beast, its fur matted and stained, its teeth bared in a snarl. "Run!" Tom shouted, and they all turned to flee, adrenaline pumping through their veins. They sprinted back down the trail, the sound of the creature's growls echoing behind them. As they ran, the forest seemed to close in around them, branches clawing at their clothes and skin. They could hear the creature gaining on them, its breath hot on their heels. Panic surged through them as they stumbled over roots and rocks, desperately trying to escape. "Where do we go?" Jenna cried, her voice filled with terror. "Just keep running," Mark yelled, glancing back to see the creature lunging toward them. They burst into a small clearing, and without thinking, they scrambled up a steep incline, hoping to put some distance between themselves and the beast. They reached the top, breathless and terrified, and looked back to see the creature pacing at the bottom of the hill, its eyes locked onto them. "What do we do now?" Rachel gasped, her heart racing. "We need to find a way out of here," Tom said, scanning the area for any signs of a trail. "There has to be a way back to the main path." As they caught their breath, they realized the creature was not just a predator, it was a guardian of the forest, protecting its territory and the secrets hidden within. The bones they had seen were not just remnants of prey, they were a warning, a testament to the dangers that lurked in the shadows. "We need to go back to the tree," Jenna said suddenly, her eyes wide with realization. "If we can reach it, maybe we can find a way to appease it." "Are you crazy?" Mark exclaimed. "That thing will tear us apart. It's our only chance." Jenna insisted. "We can't just keep." The sun filtered through the dense canopy of the Redwood National Park, casting dappled shadows on the forest floor as a group of 5 friends, Liam, Emma, Jake, Mia, and Sophie, set out for a weekend hike. They were excited to explore the towering trees and lush undergrowth, eager to escape the noise of the city and immerse themselves in nature. As they hiked deeper into the woods, the sounds of the forest surrounded them, the rustling of leaves, the chirping of birds, and the distant calls of wildlife. Laughter and chatter filled the air as they shared stories and snapped photos, reveling in the beauty of their surroundings. But as they ventured further along the trail, something began to change. The sounds of the forest gradually faded, replaced by an unsettling silence. The birds stopped singing, and the rustling of small animals in the underbrush ceased. It was as if the forest itself had held its breath. "Did you guys notice that?" Emma asked, glancing around nervously. "It's way too quiet." "Maybe the animals are just hiding," Jake suggested, though his voice lacked conviction. "It's probably just a coincidence." But as they continued on, the silence grew heavier, wrapping around them like a thick fog. The friends exchanged uneasy glances, their earlier excitement replaced by a growing sense of dread. "Let's take a break," Liam said, trying to lighten the mood. They found a small clearing and sat down on a fallen log, but the oppressive silence made it hard to relax. The air felt charged, as if something was watching them from the shadows. "Okay, this is starting to freak me out," Mia admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Where did all the animals go?" "Maybe we should head back," Sophie suggested, her eyes darting around the clearing. "I don't like this." Just as they were about to leave, a low rumble echoed through the trees, causing the ground to tremble beneath them. The friends jumped to their feet, hearts racing. "What was that?" Jake shouted, panic creeping into his voice. "I don't know, but we need to get out of here," Liam replied, glancing nervously at the trees surrounding them. They hurried back to the trail, but the silence was deafening. The forest felt alive, but not in a comforting way. It was as if the trees were closing in on them, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. As they walked, they began to notice strange markings on the trees, symbols carved into the bark, some faded and others fresh. The markings seemed to pulse with an energy that sent chills down their spines. "Guys, this is really starting to creep me out," Mia said, her voice trembling. "What if we're not alone out here?" "Let's just keep moving," Liam urged, trying to maintain a sense of calm. "We'll find our way back to the main trail." But as they pressed on, the forest grew darker, the shadows deepening around them. The silence was oppressive, and the friends felt an overwhelming sense of being watched. They quickened their pace, but the trail seemed to stretch on endlessly, twisting and turning in ways that felt unnatural. Suddenly, Sophie stopped dead in her tracks, her eyes wide with fear. "Look," she pointed ahead, and the others followed her gaze. In the distance, they saw a figure standing among the trees, a tall, shadowy silhouette that seemed to blend into the darkness. It was motionless, watching them with an intensity that made their skin crawl. "Is that a person?" Jake whispered, his voice shaking. "I don't think so," Emma replied, her heart pounding. "It looks wrong." Before they could react, the figure began to move, gliding silently through the trees toward them. Panic surged through the group, and they turned to run, but the forest seemed to shift around them, disorienting them further. "Where do we go?" Liam shouted, desperation creeping into his voice. "Just keep running," Mia cried, her breath coming in ragged gasps. They sprinted through the underbrush, branches clawing at their clothes and skin. The oppressive silence was broken only by the sound of their pounding hearts and the rustle of leaves as the figure pursued them, always just out of sight. As they stumbled into a small clearing, they found themselves surrounded by the strange symbols they had seen on the trees. The air felt charged with energy, and the ground beneath them trembled once more. "What is this place?" Sophie gasped, her eyes darting around in fear. "I don't know, but we need to get out of here," Liam shouted, but before they could move, the figure emerged from the shadows, revealing itself to be a grotesque creature, its features twisted and unnatural. It stood tall, with elongated limbs and hollow eyes that seemed to absorb the The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the dense forest of the Cascade Mountains. Sarah had set out for a solo hiking trip, eager to escape the chaos of her life and find solace in nature. She had planned to hike to a secluded lake, but as the day wore on, she lost track of time and the trail markers. By the time she realized she was off course, the sun was setting, and the forest was cloaked in shadows. As she wandered through the trees, anxiety began to creep in. The chirping of birds had faded, and an unsettling silence enveloped her. Just as she was about to turn back, she spotted a flicker of light through the trees. Curiosity piqued, she made her way toward it, hoping it was a sign of civilization. As she approached, she found a small campfire crackling merrily in a clearing, its flames dancing in the twilight. The fire was surrounded by a circle of stones, and the ground was scattered with leaves and twigs. But there was no one in sight, no tents, no backpacks, no signs of life. "Hello," Sarah called out, her voice echoing in the stillness. There was no response. She stepped closer to the fire, feeling the warmth radiate from the flames. It was strange to find a campfire in the middle of the woods with no one around. She glanced around, half expecting to see a group of campers emerge from the trees, but the clearing remained empty. As she knelt beside the fire, she noticed something odd. The flames flickered in a way that seemed almost intentional, as if they were trying to communicate. Suddenly, she heard a soft whisper, barely audible over the crackling of the fire. "Gather round, friends. It's time to share our stories." Startled, Sarah looked around, but she was still alone. The whispering continued, growing clearer, and she realized it was coming from the fire itself. The flames twisted and turned, forming shapes that danced in the air, and she felt an inexplicable pull to stay. "Who's there?" she asked, her heart racing. "Those who have come before you," the voice replied, echoing softly. "We gather here to share our tales, to remember the moments that brought us joy and sorrow." Sarah's curiosity overcame her fear. "What kind of stories?" "Stories of the forest," the voice said, and as it spoke, the flames flickered brighter, illuminating the clearing. "Stories of love, loss, and the darkness that lurks in the shadows." As if on cue, the fire began to show images, visions of people gathered around a campfire, laughing and sharing stories. Sarah watched in awe as the scenes unfolded before her eyes. She saw a group of friends, their faces illuminated by the firelight, sharing tales of their adventures in the woods. One man spoke of a lost love, recounting how he had hiked these trails with his girlfriend before she vanished without a trace. "I still come here, hoping to feel her presence," he said, his voice filled with longing. Another woman shared a chilling tale of a night when they heard strange noises in the woods, whispers that seemed to call their names. "We thought it was just the wind," she said, her eyes wide with fear. "But something was watching us, something that wanted us to leave." As the stories continued, Sarah felt a sense of unease wash over her. The laughter and camaraderie of the campers faded, replaced by a growing darkness. The fire flickered ominously, and the whispers turned into frantic voices, overlapping and chaotic. "Leave this place," one voice cried. "It's not safe." "Don't listen to them," another shouted. "Stay with us." The flames roared, and Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. She realized that the campfire was a portal to the past, a place where the spirits of those who had once gathered here lingered, trapped in their stories. "Why are you still here?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. "What happened to you?" "We were lost," the voice replied, sorrowful and haunting. "We came seeking adventure, but we found something far more sinister." The forest holds secrets, and it doesn't let go of those who wander too far. Suddenly, the fire flared up, and the images shifted to a dark scene, a group of campers running through the trees, panic etched on their faces as they were pursued by an unseen force. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of fear and desperation. "Help us," they cried. "You must leave before it finds you." Panic surged through Sarah as she realized the danger she was in. The forest was alive, and it was watching her. She stumbled back from the fire, her heart racing. "I need to go," she shouted, but the flames flickered. The sun hung high in the sky as a group of 4 friends, David, Clara, Mike, and Jenna, set out for a weekend hiking trip in the picturesque Blue Ridge Mountains. They had planned to hike the well-known trails, but as they navigated the winding paths, they stumbled upon an unmarked trail that beckoned them with an air of mystery. "Should we check it out?" Mike asked, glancing down the narrow path that seemed to disappear into the dense underbrush. "Why not? It could lead to something amazing," Clara replied, her adventurous spirit shining through. David hesitated, glancing at the map on his phone. "I don't know. It's not on the map, and we don't know where it goes." "Come on, live a little." Jenna chimed in, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "What's the worst that could happen?" With a mix of excitement and trepidation, the group decided to take the detour. They stepped onto the forgotten path, the sounds of the forest enveloping them as they ventured deeper into the woods. The air grew cooler, and the sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting dappled shadows on the ground. As they walked, the trail became increasingly overgrown, the underbrush thickening around them. The chirping of birds and rustling of leaves faded, replaced by an eerie silence that sent shivers down their spines. "Maybe this wasn't such a good idea," David muttered, glancing back the way they had come. "Relax. It's just a little detour," Clara reassured him, though her voice lacked confidence. After what felt like an eternity of walking, they emerged into a clearing that took their breath away. In the center stood an ancient stone structure, partially covered in moss and vines. It resembled a small ruin, with crumbling walls and an archway that seemed to lead into darkness. "Wow, this is incredible!" Mike exclaimed, stepping closer to the structure. "I've never seen anything like this before." As they explored the ruins, they noticed strange carvings etched into the stones, symbols and figures that seemed to tell a story. The air felt charged with energy, and an inexplicable sense of nostalgia washed over them, as if they were stepping into a memory long forgotten. "Do you feel that?" Jenna asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's like time is standing still." Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath their feet, and a low hum resonated through the air. The friends exchanged worried glances as the world around them began to shift. The ruins glowed with a soft light, and the forest seemed to fade away, replaced by a vibrant landscape filled with people dressed in old-fashioned clothing. "What the hell is happening?" David shouted, stumbling back in shock. The friends watched in awe as the scene unfolded before them. They saw a bustling village, with people laughing and dancing, children playing, and vendors selling goods. It was as if they had stepped into a different time, a time long forgotten. "Is this real?" Clara asked, her eyes wide with wonder. "I don't know, but it feels alive," Mike replied, captivated by the sights and sounds. As they moved closer to the archway, they felt a pull, an urge to step into the scene. But just as they were about to cross the threshold, a figure emerged from the crowd, a woman dressed in a flowing gown, her face radiant and full of life. "Welcome, travelers," she called out, her voice melodic. "You have found the path to our world, a place where time flows differently." "Who are you?" Jenna asked, her heart racing. "I am Alara, guardian of the Forgotten Path," the woman replied, her eyes sparkling with wisdom. "You have entered a realm where the past and present intertwine. But be warned, not all who wander here return." "What do you mean?" David asked, a sense of dread creeping in. "The path you took is a bridge between worlds," Alara explained. "Those who linger too long may find themselves lost in time, unable to return to their own lives." Panic surged through the group as they realized the gravity of their situation. "We need to go back," Clara shouted, her voice trembling. "Once you step through the archway, you may not be able to return," Alara warned. "But if you choose to leave, you must do so now." Without hesitation, the friends turned to flee, racing back toward the ruins. As they ran, the vibrant scene began to fade, the laughter and music growing distant. The ground trembled again, and the air crackled with energy. Just as they reached the edge of the clearing, they felt a force pulling at them, trying to drag them back into the past. They stumbled, grasping each other's hands tightly, and with one final push, they leaped through the night was alive with anticipation as a group of 5 friends, Ethan, Mia, Jake, Sarah, and Tom, gathered at the base of the mountain, ready for an adventure unlike any other. The sky was clear, and a blood moon was set to rise, casting an eerie red glow over the landscape. They had heard tales of the supernatural energy that accompanied such an event, and the thrill of hiking under the blood moon was too enticing to resist. "Are you sure this is a good idea?" Sarah asked, her brow furrowed with concern. "I've read that strange things happen during a blood moon." "Come on, it's just a hike," Ethan replied, grinning. "What's the worst that could happen? We'll have an epic story to tell." With a mix of excitement and trepidation, the group set off on the trail, the moonlight illuminating their path. As they hiked deeper into the woods, the atmosphere shifted. The air felt charged, and an unsettling silence enveloped them, broken only by the crunch of leaves beneath their feet. As the moon rose higher in the sky, its crimson hue bathed the forest in an otherworldly light. The trees cast long shadows, and the friends felt a growing sense of unease. They reached a clearing just as the moon reached its zenith, and they paused to take in the breathtaking sight. "Wow, it's beautiful," Mia said, her voice filled with awe. But as they stood there, a low growl echoed through the trees, sending chills down their spines. "Did you hear that?" Jake whispered, his eyes darting around the clearing. "Probably just a bear," Tom said, trying to sound brave. "Let's keep moving." But as they continued on, the growling grew louder, and the feeling of being watched intensified. The friends quickened their pace, their laughter fading as the shadows deepened around them. Suddenly, Ethan stopped dead in his tracks. "Guys, look," he pointed ahead, and the others followed his gaze to see a pair of glowing eyes watching them from the darkness. "What is that?" Sarah gasped, her heart racing. Before anyone could respond, the creature lunged from the shadows, a massive, wolf-like beast with matted fur and razor-sharp teeth. It moved with an unnatural speed, its eyes gleaming with hunger. "Run!" Ethan shouted, and they all took off in different directions, panic surging through them. The forest became a blur of trees and shadows as they sprinted, the creature's growls echoing behind them. They could hear its heavy footsteps pounding the ground, getting closer with every heartbeat. "Split up!" Mia yelled, trying to catch her breath. "We'll have a better chance." Reluctantly, they separated, each friend hoping to outsmart the beast. Ethan ran deeper into the woods, his mind racing as he searched for a place to hide. He stumbled upon a small cave, its entrance partially obscured by bushes. Without thinking, he ducked inside, pressing himself against the cool stone wall. As he caught his breath, he could hear the creature prowling outside, its growls reverberating through the air. He closed his eyes, trying to calm his racing heart, but the sound of heavy breathing sent a wave of terror through him. Meanwhile, Mia had found refuge in a thicket, her heart pounding as she listened to the chaos around her. She could hear Jake's frantic footsteps as he ran past, followed by the creature's snarls. She held her breath, praying it wouldn't find her. Tom and Sarah had taken shelter behind a fallen tree, their eyes wide with fear. "What do we do?" Tom whispered, glancing at Sarah. "We need to regroup," she replied, her voice trembling. "We can't let it pick us off one by one." As the minutes dragged on, the sounds of the forest shifted. The growling faded, replaced by an eerie silence. Ethan cautiously peeked out of the cave, his heart racing. The moonlight illuminated the clearing, but the creature was nowhere to be seen. "Guys," he called out softly, hoping to hear a response. "Ethan." Mia's voice came from nearby, and he quickly made his way toward her. They met in the clearing, relief flooding over them. "Where are the others?" Ethan asked, glancing around. "I don't know," Mia replied, her voice shaking. "We need to find them." Just then, a howl pierced the night, echoing through the trees. It was a sound filled with rage and hunger, and it sent chills down their spines. They knew they had to act fast. "Let's head back to the trailhead," Ethan suggested. "We can regroup there." As they made their way through the woods, the creature's growls began to echo around them once more. The sun hung low in the sky as Alex set out on his solo hiking trip in the remote wilderness of the Cascade Mountains. He had always sought solace in nature, and this time was no different. With a map in hand and a backpack filled with supplies, he was eager to explore the uncharted trails that promised breathtaking views and a chance to escape the noise of everyday life. As he hiked deeper into the forest, the sounds of civilization faded away, replaced by the rustling of leaves and the distant calls of birds. The trail twisted and turned, leading him through dense underbrush and towering trees. After several hours of hiking, he decided to take a break by a small stream, the cool water inviting him to rest. As he sat on a rock, sipping from his water bottle, he noticed a faint sound in the distance, a rhythmic drumming that seemed to echo through the trees. Curiosity piqued, Alex decided to investigate. He followed the sound, weaving through the trees until he stumbled upon a clearing. What he found took his breath away. In the center of the clearing was a group of people, dressed in simple, handmade clothing, gathered around a large fire. They were laughing and dancing, their faces painted with vibrant colors. The atmosphere was lively, and for a moment, Alex felt a sense of warmth and welcome. "Hello," he called out, stepping into the clearing. The group turned to him, their smiles wide and inviting. "Welcome, traveler," one of the women said, her voice melodic. "Join us. We are the keepers of the forest." Alex felt a rush of excitement. "I'm Alex. I'm just hiking through the area. This is amazing." The group welcomed him with open arms, offering him food and drink. They shared stories of their lives in the forest, explaining how they had chosen to live in harmony with nature, away from the chaos of the outside world. They spoke of their ancestors and the traditions they upheld, and Alex found himself captivated by their way of life. As night fell, the fire crackled, and the drumming intensified. The atmosphere shifted, becoming more charged. Alex felt a sense of unease creeping in, but he brushed it off, attributing it to the unfamiliarity of the situation. "Stay with us tonight," the woman urged, her eyes sparkling in the firelight. "You are safe here." Reluctantly, Alex agreed, feeling a mix of excitement and apprehension. He settled in with the tribe, sharing stories and laughter as the night wore on. But as the hours passed, he began to notice strange things. The laughter felt forced, and the smiles of the tribe members seemed to mask something darker. As the fire burned low, the drumming took on a more ominous tone. The tribe members began to chant in a language Alex didn't understand, their voices rising and falling in a haunting melody. He felt a chill run down his spine as he realized that the atmosphere had shifted from welcoming to something more sinister. "What are you chanting about?" Alex asked, trying to mask his growing unease. The woman who had welcomed him smiled, but there was a glint in her eyes that sent a shiver through him. "We honor the spirits of the forest. They protect us, and we must show our gratitude." "Gratitude?" Alex echoed, his heart racing. "What do you mean?" Before she could answer, a loud crack echoed through the clearing, and the tribe members fell silent, their expressions shifting to one of fear. The drumming stopped abruptly, and the air grew thick with tension. "Something is coming," one of the men whispered, his eyes darting toward the trees. Alex's instincts kicked in, and he felt a surge of panic. "I think I should go," he said, backing away from the fire. "I need to get back to the trail." "No," the woman said, her voice sharp. "You cannot leave. You are part of this now." "What do you mean?" Alex asked, his heart pounding. "I'm just a hiker." The tribe members began to close in around him, their expressions shifting from friendly to predatory. The warmth of the fire felt distant, and the shadows seemed to stretch and twist around him. "Every year, we must make a sacrifice to the spirits," the woman said, her voice low and chilling. "You have come to us on this night, and you will fulfill that role." Panic surged through Alex as he realized the truth. The tribe was not what it seemed. They were not protectors of the forest but rather its dark enforcers, willing to do anything to appease the spirits they worshipped. "Get away from me," he shouted, turning to run. The tribe members lunged at him, their hands reaching out as he sprinted into the darkness of the forest. He ran blindly, branches clawing at his skin as he navigated through the trees. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the dense forest as Sarah adjusted the straps of her backpack. She had always been drawn to the wilderness, seeking solace in the rustling leaves and the chirping of birds. Today, however, she felt an unusual thrill coursing through her veins, a sense of adventure that beckoned her deeper into the woods. As she trekked along the narrow trail, she stumbled upon an old, weathered compass half buried in the underbrush. Its brass casing was tarnished, and the glass face was cracked, but something about it intrigued her. She picked it up, brushing off the dirt, and noticed that the needle spun wildly before settling in a direction that was decidedly not north. Curiosity piqued, Sarah decided to follow the compass. It led her off the beaten path, through thickets of brambles and over moss-covered rocks. The deeper she went, the more the forest seemed to change. The air grew thick and heavy, and the sounds of nature faded into an eerie silence, broken only by the occasional rustle of unseen creatures. After what felt like hours, Sarah emerged into a hidden valley, a place that seemed untouched by time. The landscape was surreal. Towering trees with twisted trunks loomed overhead, their leaves shimmering in unnatural hues of purple and blue. Strange flowers bloomed in clusters, their petals glistening like glass, and the ground was carpeted with a thick layer of fog that curled around her ankles. As she ventured further into the valley, unsettling sights began to reveal themselves. Shadows flitted between the trees, and the air was filled with whispers that seemed to echo her thoughts. Sarah's heart raced as she caught glimpses of figures lurking just beyond her line of sight, tall, gaunt shapes that melted into the darkness as she turned to look. The compass continued to guide her, its needle unwavering in its strange direction. She felt an inexplicable pull, as if the valley itself was alive and beckoning her deeper into its embrace. But with each step, the atmosphere grew heavier, and the whispers grew louder, coiling around her like tendrils of smoke. Suddenly, she stumbled upon a clearing where the fog lifted, revealing a circle of ancient stones, each etched with cryptic symbols. In the center stood a gnarled tree, its bark twisted and knotted, with roots that seemed to writhe like serpents. The compass needle quivered violently, as if warning her to turn back. But Sarah was entranced. She approached the tree, feeling an inexplicable connection to it. As she reached out to touch the rough bark, a surge of energy coursed through her, and the whispers crescendoed into a cacophony of voices. They spoke of lost souls, of wanderers who had come before her, drawn by the cursed compass, never to return. Panic surged within her as she realized the truth. The compass was not a guide but a trap, leading her to this forsaken place. She turned to flee, but the shadows that had been lurking now coalesced into solid forms, blocking her path. Their hollow eyes bore into her, and she felt their despair wash over her like a cold wave. Desperate, Sarah clutched the compass tightly, willing it to point her back to safety. The needle spun wildly again, and in that moment, she understood. The compass was a reflection of her own choices, a manifestation of her fears and desires. She had to confront the darkness within herself to escape. With a deep breath, she closed her eyes and focused on the whispers, allowing them to wash over her. She acknowledged the pain, the regrets, and the fears that had haunted her. As she did, the shadows began to recede, their forms dissolving into the mist. When she opened her eyes, the valley was transformed. The colors were vibrant, the air filled with the sweet scent of blooming flowers. The shadows had vanished, and the whispers had quieted to a gentle hum. The compass now pointed steadily north, guiding her back the way she had come. With renewed determination, Sarah retraced her steps, the path now clear and welcoming. As she emerged from the forest, the sun broke through the clouds, bathing her in warm light. She looked back at the trees, the hidden valley now a distant memory, and felt a sense of peace wash over her. The cursed compass lay heavy in her pocket, a reminder of the journey she had taken, not just through the woods, but within herself. She had faced her fears and emerged stronger, ready to embrace the world beyond the forest, knowing that sometimes, the true direction lies not in the compass, but in the heart. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting an orange glow over the dense forest as a group of 4 friends, Emily, Jake, Mia, and Tom, hiked along a winding trail. They had set out early that morning, eager to escape the hustle and bustle of city life and immerse themselves in nature. Laughter and camaraderie filled the air as they shared stories and took in the beauty of their surroundings. As they ventured deeper into the woods, the trail began to narrow, and the trees grew thicker, their branches intertwining overhead like a natural cathedral. It was then that they stumbled upon an old cabin, half hidden by overgrown vines and moss. Its wooden walls were weathered and gray, and the roof sagged under the weight of years. Curiosity piqued, the group exchanged glances, and with a shared sense of adventure, they decided to explore. Pushing open the creaking door, they stepped inside, the air thick with the scent of damp wood and decay. The interior was dimly lit by the fading light filtering through grimy windows. Dust motes danced in the air, and the floorboards groaned under their weight. The cabin was sparsely furnished, with a rickety table, a few mismatched chairs, and a stone fireplace that had long since gone cold. As they explored, Mia noticed something glinting in the corner. She approached and discovered a collection of strange artifacts, jars filled with murky liquids, dried herbs, and what appeared to be animal bones. A chill ran down her spine as she picked up a small, intricately carved figurine that resembled a twisted creature. "Guys, look at this," she called, holding it up for the others to see. Jake leaned in closer, his brow furrowing. "What do you think it is? Some kind of idol?" Emily, who had wandered over to a dusty bookshelf, pulled out a leather-bound diary. Its cover was cracked and worn, but the pages inside were surprisingly intact. "I found this," she said, flipping it open. "It looks like it belonged to the last person who lived here." The group gathered around as Emily began to read aloud. The entries were dated from decades ago, detailing the life of a man named Samuel, who had retreated to the cabin seeking solitude. But as the days turned into weeks, the tone of the diary shifted. Samuel wrote of strange occurrences, whispers in the night, shadows flitting just beyond the trees, and an overwhelming sense of dread that settled over him like a shroud. "Listen to this," Emily said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "He talks about rituals, sacrifices to appease the spirits of the forest. He believed the land was cursed, and that he needed to perform dark rites to protect himself." Mia shivered, glancing around the cabin as if expecting to see something lurking in the shadows. "This is creepy. We should leave." But Jake, ever the skeptic, scoffed. "It's just an old diary. People have wild imaginations. There's no way any of this is real." Emily continued reading, her voice trembling as she recounted Samuel's final entries. He described a growing madness, a compulsion to perform increasingly disturbing rituals. The last entry was scrawled in a frantic hand, detailing a final ceremony meant to bind the spirits to the land, ensuring his safety. It ended abruptly, with a single, chilling line, "They are coming for me." The atmosphere in the cabin shifted, the air growing heavy with an unshakable tension. Tom, who had been silent until now, spoke up. "Maybe we should just take the diary and get out of here. This place gives me the creeps." As they prepared to leave, a sudden gust of wind rattled the windows, and the door slammed shut with a deafening bang. The friends jumped, their hearts racing. "What the hell was that?" Mia exclaimed, her voice rising in panic. Jake rushed to the door, yanking on the handle, but it wouldn't budge. "It's stuck. Someone help me." Emily's eyes darted around the room, and she felt a cold presence enveloping them. "We need to find another way out," she shouted, her voice laced with fear. In their frantic search, they stumbled upon a trapdoor hidden beneath a tattered rug. With no time to waste, they pried it open and descended into the darkness below. The air was damp and musty, and the faint glow of their flashlights revealed a small underground chamber lined with more strange artifacts and symbols etched into the stone walls. As they explored the chamber, they found remnants of the rituals described in the diary, charred remains of offerings, and a large stone altar at the center, stained dark with age. The atmosphere was thick with an oppressive energy, and the whispers that had haunted Samuel's writings now echoed in.